it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. So I had a fantastic reading month in July, which I am beyond happy with because in May and June I wasn't reading a lot since I was traveling so much and I was just really busy, but in July my schedule started to open up a little bit and I was able to read 13 books, which I haven't done in so long, so I'm so happy about that. I have been taking my time with reading and not really putting a lot of pressure on myself, but this month reading just kind of became something that I really wanted to do again because I had been in a little bit of a slump, not really finding anything that I was loving, and I just wasn't wanting to pick up books. But now I'm back to my regular self and wanting to pick up all of the books, and I just can't get enough of it. So I've been on a huge contemporary kick. I have been reading a ton and I am so excited to share with you guys the amazing books that I read this month. There were some that I didn't like so much, but I also read a lot of amazing books. And besides just being in the mood to read, I also decided last minute at the end of the month that I was going to participate in the BOOKTUBE-A-THON. So I did the BOOKTUBE-A-THON for the third time now. I think it's my third time. Yeah, it's my third year on YouTube, so it's my third time doing it, and it was such a blast. I had so much fun. Today is actually the last day of it, which I'm so sad about, but I did vlog my entire BOOKTUBE-A-THON experience, so if you guys wanted to go and watch that, I will link it down below for you. It should be up before this video as long as everything goes according to plan and my editing schedule stays as it should be, so I will link it down below whenever it comes out. But if you guys wanted to see how I did during the BOOKTUBE-A-THON, then you can watch that. But today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read during BOOKTUBE-A-THON and also the other books that I read in July. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Also, since today is the last day of the BOOKTUBE-A-THON, I have a couple of books that I'm hoping to finish today, but I need to film this video now because I have no other time to film it. So if I do finish them today, and even if I don't, I will end up talking about them more in my August wrap-up, but I'm planning on reading Hunting of the Snark by Louise Carroll for the Read a Book Outdoors challenge, and then I'm also currently listening to the audiobook for 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray, so I'm making my way through this one. I probably won't finish this one by the end of the BOOKTUBE-A-THON though, and then I'm also reading Queens of Geek by Jen Wild. Don't know if I'll finish this one either, but these are my three current reads that are hopefully going to be done by the end of the day, but probably not. So now getting into the books that I actually finished in July. First up we have They Both Die at the End by Adam Silveira. This tells the story of Rufus and Mateo, and it's kind of a magical realism, sort of like realistic sci-fi sort of deal. It's very hard to categorize, but basically the world that this takes place in is just like our own, except there's this thing that exists called Deathcast. And Deathcast is a program that you'll have someone call you on the day that you're going to die, telling you, hey, you're gonna die today, but you don't know how or when it's going to happen. So because that's obviously terrifying, there have been a lot of things that have been created in order to make that last day a little bit easier. And one of the things is this app that's the Last Friend app, or I'm not sure if that's actually what it's called, but essentially it's kind of like a dating app, but it matches you up with your last friend. So it's someone that you can meet and either you're both on your last day or it's someone who just wants to help you out on your last day. There's also some creeps on there, just like dating apps, but basically Mateo and Rufus end up meeting up on this app and they end up starting up a relationship, and it is both of their last days. So you just know that this is going to be a heartbreaking story, and it's actually kind of similar to an idea that I had for a story of my own. I never ended up writing it, but I think that Adam Silveira did a fantastic job with it. It was a great story. I didn't love it quite as much as History Is All You Left Me. That was his other book that I read. It's right up here, right there. I really loved that one. This one I didn't enjoy quite as much, but it was still an amazing story. Really, my main complaint about this book is that it's pretty slow going. It's definitely not the quickest read in the world. It kind of dragged on a little bit at times, but it was overall well executed, and I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then after that, it picked up Always and Forever, Lara Jean by Jenny Han. This is the conclusion to the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy, which the first book is actually becoming a movie. It looks amazing. Look it up because it just looks fantastic, but this was originally supposed to be only a duology, and then it became a trilogy, and if you guys remember, I wasn't very thrilled about that, but I ended up picking this one up nonetheless, and I was very apprehensive going into it, but oh my goodness, I loved it. This was my favorite book of the whole trilogy. Like, the trilogy as a whole is closer to 5 stars. The books individually I would say are closer to 4. This one would be like 4.5. This just gave it such a nice bookend to the whole story. All of the characters in this trilogy had a nice character arc. Even the main character's little sister Kitty. It was just amazing how she was able to develop these characters, and I just felt like I was so connected to them and their stories, and it it was honestly so good. And if you guys aren't familiar with this story, it's basically Lara Jean writes these letters to all the boys that she's loved before, and she writes them in order to get over them, but then they end up getting sent out and she has to deal with everything that comes from those being sent to those boys. So it's just an amazing trilogy. Honestly, the character development is out of this world, and I'm so happy that I did read this. I was very apprehensive, but I'm eating my words here. It was really good. And I will be doing a review for this one. I have a review for the other two books in the trilogy, spoiler-free review, so I will link that down below for you guys. After that, I picked up The Pearl Thief by Elizabeth Wien, a historical fiction in the summertime. What? Crazy. And this isn't even like a fun historical fiction. This was more of a kind of mysterious historical fiction. It's basically book 0 to the Codename Verity duology, which is now kind of a trilogy. This is preceding Codename Verity, which you guys probably know by now that I love so much. So if you guys are familiar with Codename Verity, it's telling you a little bit of backstory about Julie, or the main character in Codename Verity, and honestly it was really cool to get that backstory because she's a very fascinating character, so I loved learning more about her. This was the first book of Elizabeth Wien's that I've read that hasn't involved aviation, which was kind of cool. This takes place in Scotland and it deals with Scotland river pearls, and it has this whole mystery kind of whodunit feel that blends with that very nicely. I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the Codename Verity duology, but it was still really cool to get that backstory on Julie since she is a great character. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. And this one I'm not sure if I'm going to do a review for yet, but I do have a review for both Codename Verity and the second book of that duology, Rose Under Fire, so I will link those down below for you. Then after that started the kick of me reading European travel books. So the first one that I read was I See London, I See France by Sarah Malinowski. This was so good. I was so pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It follows these two best friends. They've been best friends for forever, but they are now in their first year of college, and they went to colleges in separate countries, so they haven't seen each other for a very long time, but they've always been talking about doing this Europe trip together, so they finally decide to do it and they go on this crazy European backpacking trip, but they end up running into one of the main characters' ex-boyfriends on the way, and it's a mess from there. I will definitely be doing a review for this very soon. I have it all planned out, but basically I loved the main character. I hated her best friend, like hated her with an absolute passion. I loved the travel aspect to it. This was just very nostalgic for me because they went so many of the same places that my sister and I went to, so it was just like I was back there. And I think even if I hadn't been on a trip like this before, I feel like she does a fantastic job of transporting you to Europe and making you feel like you are on your own European backpacking trip. She really just brings you there, which is awesome, and I think what makes a successful European travel book, or really anything travel book. This is honestly just a really cute summer contemporary, easy. It's not the best book in the world, but if you want something that's just fun, cute, quick, and will kind of bring you on a vacation, if you can't afford your own vacation, then this is perfect for you. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, and like I said, a review will be coming for you very, very soon, I promise. Then I picked up another European travel book, go figure, and that was And We're Off by Dana Schwartz. After having just read I See London, I See France, I had very high expectations, so this one was kind of a little bit of a letdown. The concept was really cool, but the execution was a little bit lacking. It's kind of said to be like 13 Little Blue Envelopes meets Gilmore Girls, which I think is a bit of a misnomer. It's not like Gilmore Girls because it features a mother-daughter relationship, but the mother and daughter don't really get along. So basically what happens is the main character is sent to Ireland to go to this very prestigious art school, and her grandfather is this world-renowned artist and she loves art. It is her absolute passion, so she is so excited to be going to this school, and her grandfather is going to pay for it all as long as she's kind of given little projects by him to do along the way, little artistic projects. Now her mother doesn't support her artistic endeavors, but just spur of the moment at the airport she tells her, I'm gonna go with you, so she just goes with her off to Europe, and as they don't get along, it just kind of is a mess. Now one of the things that I felt like was happening with this book was that there were things that kept on going wrong just for the sake of going wrong. It didn't really make sense. It was just kind of for plot points. It was unrealistic, and on my own European backpacking trip, so many things went wrong. I mean, I had strep throat when I got there, I lost my passport at one point, I sprained my ankle, it was just a mess, but this just felt like it was the stupidest things that were going wrong, so I didn't like that, and I just felt like I was expecting it to be a nice mother-daughter relationship, but it wasn't really like that, so I didn't really care for the characters or anything about the story. I liked the artistic aspect to it. It was a solid travel book, but definitely not my favorite, especially after having just read one that I loved so much. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. Then after that, I picked up Writing Great Books for Young Adults by Regina L. Brooks. This is more of an informational read, obviously. If you guys don't know, I am planning on writing my own young adult novel. I have very big plans for it. I'm kind of working on it. I've taken a break for the week of BOOKTUBE-A-THON, but I've been really fleshing out ideas, and I'm very much, I feel like, ready to finally start my outline. It's a very hard process writing a novel, believe it or not, so I like to read a lot of stuff before I actually go into projects. So this was one of the books that I decided to read, and it was okay. This was more so, I felt like, geared towards older audience that was writing just to kind of cash in on the young adult market, which was very annoying to me. So I wasn't a fan of that. It had some good tidbits of information, but for the most part, I felt like it was underestimating young adult readers. It was kind of assuming that they're dumb and they wouldn't understand complex ideas. So I didn't like the fact that it was really just kind of dumbing them down. Basically, while I did get some good tidbits of information, I felt like they were tidbits that I could have gotten from any other book, and they weren't really specific to young adults. The only things that were specific to young adult readers was acting like they were stupid. So wasn't a big fan of this and ended up giving it like 2 stars or something like that. After that, I picked up Under Rose-Tainted Skies by Louise. This is a great own voices story about a main character who is agoraphobic. She suffers from OCD, self-harm, and there's one other thing that I'm forgetting, anxiety. I think those are the only ones, but you can really tell that the author has experienced the things that this main character is experiencing, because it comes from such a personal place and it seems like such a personal story, and I just thought it was so good, so well done. I will admit I didn't like some of the things that were happening because I felt like they were just happening for the sake of plot points. They didn't really seem realistic. Mainly the ending kind of just came out of nowhere. But that being said, I think this was an adorable but also really informative story. I loved the relationships in it. It was so cute and the characters were so well done. And like I said, you could really tell that the author was writing from a place of personal experience. So I will be doing a full review for this one, but for now I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. But like I said, full spoiler review hopefully will be happening. So once that does, I will link it down below. After that, I finally finished Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. This had been one of my most anticipated releases of this year, and I had tried to read it 3 separate times, and finally on the 3rd try I actually got through it. I didn't realize the first 2 times, but the reason that it was taking me so long to get through was the fact that I was bored. I didn't really like the story that much. I felt like it had a lot of potential, but it just kind of fell flat. I didn't really care for the characters or anything like that. I just wasn't engaged in the world or the story of these characters. It was just blah. Now, a lot of people are complaining because this was kind of marketed as a Mulan retelling, and it's not, but that wasn't where my problem with it was, because I thought you could really see the Mulan inspiration from the characters. At least that's where you really got it, was from our main character, but I just felt like it wasn't what it could have been, and I was so disappointed and sad with it. So I ended up giving it only a 2.5 out of 5 stars, and I feel like even that was kind of generous because it was just kind of forgettable for me, which is so sad. After that, BOOKTUBE-A-THON started, so the rest of the books are ones that I read for the BOOKTUBE-A-THON. So the first book that I read was The Wonder of Us by Kim Culbertson. This fulfilled the challenge of reading a book with a person on the cover, and it has 2 people, so killing it, but it wasn't very good, which was sad. This is another European travel story about 2 best friends who have kind of had a falling out, and the one friend's grandmother pays to send the other friend and like both of the friends on this backpacking trip across Europe, because the one friend is living in Europe, so she brings the other friend over and they travel around Europe. Now, it seems like the setup for an awesome story, but like once again, I was bored. I felt like it was so much potential. It didn't live up to it, which just makes me so sad. So I gave this one, I think, a 2 out of 5 stars, I believe. I don't know. It was just like unfortunate. Then my second read for the BOOKTUBE-A-THON was Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella. This fulfilled the challenge of reading a book in 1 day, and honestly didn't like this one either. It was just very odd. It didn't seem to have a real focus, because the synopsis is all about Audrey, but I felt like the story was more about her family, and specifically her brother and her mother and their relationship. So I was honestly struggling to find Audrey in the whole story. It wasn't until like the second half that she really became the main character, and even then she wasn't really. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan. I will probably be doing a review for this one, but it was just meh. Then my third book for the BOOKTUBE-A-THON is actually one that I started before BOOKTUBE-A-THON, but I read the bulk of it during BOOKTUBE-A-THON, so I'm still counting it, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I listened to the audiobook for this because everyone had been raving about it, and it really was so good. Apparently the narrator is the guy who plays Tom Riddle in the Harry Potter movies, which is amazing, but this is just such a great story all about a grand tour of Europe. These two characters go on it together before they are going to be parting ways. They have an adorable relationship. This was such a fun story is honestly all I can say about it. I will definitely be doing a full review for this one, like spoilers and all, so check out that once it happens. It will soon. I have it planned, but it was just so much fun. I love this story a lot, so definitely just watch my review because I can't even formulate thoughts about it right now, but I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, I believe. Yeah, 4.5. Also, I think I forgot to mention I gave Finding Audrey a 2 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook for Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. I finally read this book. I was so excited that I finally did it. It was just so good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. You can totally see why it's a children's classic because it kind of takes all the elements that children love and turns it into this amazing, just tons of fun story. It was great. I loved it so much, and just, it's definitely a classic for a reason. And I read this one for the challenge of reading a hyped book because, I mean, come on, it's quite hyped. Then after that, I finished another audiobook that I had started before the BOOKTUBE-A-THON, and that was Stars Above by Marissa Meyer. This is a Lunar Chronicles collection. So I'm now finally done the Lunar Chronicles series, and I was honestly really surprised at how much I enjoyed this because I liked Lunar Chronicles, but I don't love it nearly as much as other people do, and I usually only read short story collections if it's for a story that I'm very invested in, or else I don't tend to enjoy them, but I liked this a lot. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was tons of fun to get some backstory and some future story on like the events after winter for some of my favorite characters. It was just really great, tons of fun, and just on point. It was good. Now at this point I was kind of behind where I wanted to be with BOOKTUBE-A-THON, so I decided to pick up a couple of really quick reads, and that was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Do I even need to tell you that I loved them so much? I read the one with the illustrations by Camille Rose Garcia this time, which are so grotesque and very cool, very fitting for the story. I loved it. Like, it was just so great, and I'm reading these kind of for the cover buy thing because I mean I have 32 copies, so like I feel like it fits for a cover buy because at this point I'm just buying it for the cover. I mean really this one's the illustrations, but you get the point. I was supposed to read another book for cover buy, but I'm using this one to fit that challenge because yeah, it fits. Obviously these were 5 out of 5 stars. I mean, come on. And the last book that I've read so far for BOOKTUBE-A-THON, but I will read more later today, is American Street by Ibby Zoboy. This took me way longer than I was expecting it to, but it was really, really good. This fulfilled the challenge of reading a book about a character who is not like me, and this is about a Haitian immigrant to Detroit. This was so authentic and just painted a startlingly honest portrait of Detroit and how these immigrants, they come and they're expecting a new life, but sometimes they end up in communities that are on the fringes and not necessarily any better than the life that they're leaving behind. This was just so fantastic. I plan on doing a full review for it because I loved it so much and it really just stuck with me, and I think it's a very important read, and I'm surprised that it doesn't get more hype because it was talked about quite a bit around when it came out, but I haven't really heard anything about it since, but it was just amazing and I highly recommend it. So that is all for my wrap up, which is probably extremely long because I went way more into depth about these books than I was planning on, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have read any of these books, your thoughts on them, and also like I said, some of these haven't done a review for yet, but I will be doing soon. Let me know if there are any that you really want to see a review for. You can just comment that down below and I will make sure to get that one to you very, very soon. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!